All right, we're back. It's been 2 weeks since I recorded last. Today's a partly sunny day, but as you can see, my entire lake, the ice is all melted. And we got some updates for you in the shed. I'm going to keep that open so we got good light. But my last update, I mentioned that I needed to rewire my whole system here because all my batteries were daisy chained. Well, on a sunny day, my batteries overfilled again and my solar charger died on me. So the power in the camper went out. I came out usually when the power dies because my batteries are too full. It's usually the inverter, and I just have to unplug my solar, turn on the inverter again, but that wasn't the case this time. I guess it fried my solar charger. So first I just rewired my solar charger, and I was like, while I'm at it, since I have to disconnect all the wires, I'll redo my whole batteries. So I did that. I disconnected everything here. I had to take out all my batteries because they were lined up this way, but in order to put in the bus bars correctly, I needed them all to be able to reach. So I redid the shelving here, put the batteries in the right way, and I got that working. And then the system was working fine. I had power, but when I went to start my coffee maker, it tripped the breaker and I didn't have enough juice to get there. So after some research, I found out the inverter should be wired directly to the batteries instead of going through the charge controller, which does have a circuit for a load, but it's not meant for a big load. So after doing that, that solved my issue where when I get too much solar, it shuts everything off. Now that doesn't happen. It just stops charging the batteries, but the batteries still work for my inverter. So I'm really happy to finally have that problem solved because I've tested it out on these sunny days and it's working. It was a lot of work, but this breaker here is the battery that goes to my solar charger. So I got a little breaker there that I can trip as needed. This one here I had to add in when I wired my inverter directly to my batteries. I wanted to be able to disconnect it, so I scavenged this from my shock shack along with these bus bars, but everything's working really good now. I moved the DC step down converter. This converts 48 volts DC into 12 volts DC, which is what I need for my diesel heater in here, and also this little LED light. So really happy with that. Down here you see I got a bunch of jugs of water. Because temperatures have been so warm, I used my reverse osmosis to fill all my empty jugs of water. For each 1 gallon that my reverse osmosis makes, it wastes 3 gallons of water in order to make 1 gallon of drinking water. Well, 1 gallon of drinking water plus 3 wastewater. So as you can see, my water tank level is down to here. Last time it was up to here. But the good thing is when it's warm and not freezing temperatures, I can pump water from here into my camper easy enough. And filling all these jugs with my reverse osmosis, I had to drain my camper tank 2 times because all that wastewater goes into my camper tank. So at least that's done. We had warm weather. The other update, last time on my video I installed the UV filter in here. I'm going to close this door, turn on my light. Last time when I shined my light in here, the water looked yellow. Now it looks crystal clear. And if we look in here and shine the light in, that is crystal clear water. I ran this UV filter for about 5 days and it cleaned it all up. So I'm really happy with that improvement on the water filter there. Since we had nice weather, I went ahead and filled up my 5-gallon buckets from my lake over there. I filled those up. They were getting low for Duke and chicken water, so those are full. And what else do I have? Oh, when I do pump water from this tank into my camper, I just come and plug this in, which this gives me water pressure to my spigot outside over here. So then I can just turn this on and off to pump the water up to my camper. So I used a bunch. I had to fill my whole freshwater tank again to fill all those freshwater gallons. And I got to fill it again now that everything's done. But over here, given it's nice weather, so I walk down to my holding tank. We've got water flowing in really good here because all the melted snow, and we got 1.5 inches or 2 inches of rain yesterday. So this is so full it's overflowing, but that's really clean filtered groundwater. So I'll probably fill up my tank up in the shed with this. But you probably can't hear it here, but I'm gonna walk closer. I've got a waterfall over here, and you can see streams flowing pretty good here. This flows into my little pond down there. This is melted snow and filtered groundwater. But over here at the rock cliff, you can see the crystal clear water streaming down. And if we come up here, I have waterfalls. So I do have a picture I'll include at the end of this video where the waterfalls, it was so cold they iced over. So I have a picture of icicles up and down my rock cliff waterfall. Other good news, right up here is where the turkey vultures are in the cave. And they came back. I've seen 3 of them circling around and caught them on my trail cam. So I'm going to include the pictures of the turkey vultures. I think it's the mom and her 2 babies are back. So maybe they'll lay more eggs. Duke's liking the warmer weather too. He does not like the cold. But I'm going to walk back over to camp there and give you an update on my truck being stuck in snow chains and all. Alright, I made it back to the truck. Last we met, I had got it unstuck, but my snow chains were too small. Well, I ordered the right size on Amazon, and I took my 4-wheeler into town, or not into town, but to my neighbor's who drove me into town on a Monday to go pick up my right snow chains, but we got into town at 4:30. The post office closes at 4, and they didn't put them in those little drop boxes, so I did not end up getting my sets of snow chains, which I now have and keep them in my truck, because these are not only snow chains, but if my hill is too muddy, I might have to put them on and call them mud chains, but this should give me more traction if I can't get up my hill. But I did not get those until I got my truck unstuck, and we had 2 days above 50-degree temperatures, and there was only like maybe less than an inch of snow. So I figured for sure my truck can make it up, no problem. Well, I ended up getting my truck stuck again because it slid sideways off the road. And my neighbor helped me the first time, but this time, since there was so little snow, I ended up starting up my tractor, driving that down. I was able to pull the front end about a foot kind of back onto the road. Then I had to get a shovel because I actually got high centered. That's why you see all the dirt on that. Had to get a shovel, dig out the high center, put it under the wheel so it would ramp it up. And then I used my ATV and the winch to hook on back here. And once I got it shoveled out there, the front end kind of scooted over. I was able to hook my winch on, get in the truck, reverse it out, and get it back on the road. And finally got unstuck. So 2 weeks, over 2 weeks, my truck was stuck down here. So when I finally did go into town, I filled up these 3 propane bottles. I still had that one there, but I filled up those 3. I brought 2 gas cans because I did have to run my generator right before the cold, which was just poor planning on my part, but then I also used some gas in my 4-wheeler, so filled up my gas cans and put some fuel stabilizer in there. Also got a haircut while I was in town, did some grocery shopping, and it was just nice to be able to actually get up my hill. But I think that's most of the updates that I have since we last talked. Yesterday I spent the full day doing research on starting a house build for, well, tiny home, but house build for the springtime. And the hardest part about it is finding the right spot to put it. So these 4 chairs you see here mark the 4 corners of a 16-foot by 16-foot 2-story home that I plan to build. I wanted to kind of leave this area open and build it a little higher on the hill, but I was doing the measurements, so I planned to build it up here, and I did the measurements from this high corner down to the low corner there is a 5-foot drop, and I'm doing a pier and beam foundation, so I could do it, but then I would have to add all sorts of bracing to the cement piers. So I think it's worthwhile just to move it down onto a little flatter land down here and just build it right in this area here. So I'm still giving the location a lot of thought. Depending on the slope of the land makes a huge difference on the foundation and the stabilizers that need to be built with it. So still doing more research on that, but that's been keeping me busy and filling out my taxes. That took a long time. That was pretty painful. But it's nice and sunny today. I'm charging my batteries. I have been, in order to save propane, because we've had enough sunny days, my solar panels give me way more energy on a sunny day than I use in probably 2 or 3 days with just the heater running and my computer, microwave, whatever I'm using. So since I have extra power, I've been turning my refrigerator from propane to electric, and on sunny days that works really good. Saves some propane, but it burns through quite a bit of electricity. I didn't realize. I've been kind of monitoring it as I go. But today it was cloudy in the morning. I was down to 50% battery. I was like, oh, I don't know when it's going to be sunny again. So I did switch it back to propane, but now the sun's out, I can switch it back to electric. This hose here was for filling my freshwater tank. I got to do that again before I wrap it all up. So yeah, this nice warm weather. I'm hoping most of the snow for winter is done. I'm going to include some pictures of turkey vultures. Me and Duke walking out on the lake literally 2 weeks ago when it was frozen over. And the deer have been coming out. Since I can get up the hill again, I've been putting some fresh food out there, corn for the deer. So they've been coming out enjoying that. But it's really pretty out. I can hear the waterfall over here. That gives me plans to possibly, from right here, if these trees weren't in the way, I could see the giant rock face in the waterfall. So I might add that to my to-do list, is clear the trees so that I can see the rock face, because it's really pretty. But I need to think about erosion control, so more to come on that one later. Alright, well, thanks for hanging with. You'll see some videos of the snow and some pictures of the wildlife. And I guess I'm preparing next weekend. I'm flying out to New York to go snowmobiling with some friends. So I introduced Duke to my neighbor and his dogs. And I'm going to have my neighbor watch Duke while I go away. There's small town Piedmont has no dog care facilities, no Rover, no WAG. The closest one was in St. Louis next to the airport. And they're only open from like 8 to 8. And my flight leaves at 6 a.m. so that wasn't really going to work either. So I talked to my neighbor. He's willing to watch Duke. And we did the introduction on Friday this week, so I think that's going to go good. He's got 3 other dogs, and Duke gets along with them well. So figured out all the winter stuff. Now that this doesn't shut off on too much solar, I should be able to leave everything working with the water not freezing. It is going to drop below freezing one night, but I've got this heater that heats the birds' water. And as long as my electricity is working, it'll keep my camper heater working. So I'm feeling a lot better about leaving for a long weekend now that everything's stable. So spring will be here before we know it. And that's a wrap. And here before the snowstorm, my dad gave me a good idea to put a yardstick out, but I didn't have one. So I made this up to 8 inches, and I placed it up on my trail cam before the snow, which you can see on the ground. And this is after the snow came. It was a little over 8 inches of snow. It kind of went over my milk jug. And this is a view from outdoor of my camper. You see the snow is all over the lake, so might as well make a snow angel. This is a video recorded on my phone. It's in portrait instead of landscape. But this was 2 weeks ago. The whole lake was frozen over. And I measured the ice, and it was about 3 to 4 inches thick. So Duke and I braved it and walked out on it. But no deeper than shoulder depth in the water. So here you see we're out on the lake. Duke was like, oh, look at all this free space to roam. But it was cold, and It melted in 2 weeks. This is when I got stuck on my hill the first time and was able to get it out with 2 ATVs. Then I got it stuck again when it was mostly melted, and it took a tractor. Trying to get unstuck again. I got the winch hooked up back here. I'm high centered, so I got the shovel out and dug underneath the step bars there. I used my tractor to pull it forward just a little bit, as much as it could, which let me dig around the tires and put some dirt underneath so it can ramp up a little bit. But the tractor couldn't get enough traction to keep pulling it unstuck, so I cut some trees on that side, dug this out, and now I'm going to try to back it up a little bit. I finally got it unstuck with the tractor on the front and the ATV in the back. And you can see where it was high centered here, and that caused all the problems. Then I really wanted to get up the hill, so since it was unstuck, I tried just pulling it up the hill with the tractor not being stuck, and that didn't work. I've been getting about 3 eggs almost every day, even during winter, so that's been impressive. I've had more than enough to eat, and I share them with my neighbor at the bottom of the hill. Here's some good views in the morning, and the afternoon, and at sunset. This was not all the time, but here's evening. It was warm enough Duke and I ate outside. This is when my 2 waterfalls froze before we even got the big snowstorm. But the rest is just upcoming pictures of nature.